So maybe you're considering getting sex reassignment surgery and you're worried about what to expect, but you're not really sure what is true when you're looking at all the information on the internet. So today I wanted to push back against some of those myths and misconceptions that are often circulating about MTF SRS. Common myth is you won't be able to orgasm after SRS, or it'll be a shitty orgasm. You won't be able to feel pleasure or sensations. But that's simply not true. Yes, there is always that possibility that maybe you'll lose some sensation, maybe your orgasming won't be as good, but in the vast majority of cases, especially if you're going to doctors who know what they're doing, have some experience working with MTF Vaginoplasty, in all likelihood, you will have the ability to orgasm. Now, obviously, it's going to be different than what orgasm was like prior to SRS. You're going to have different sexual anatomy, and you probably have been on hormones for a while, which also changes sensation and orgasming as well. But don't worry, orgasming is still a thing that many of us can experience, myself included. And I know that is something that's very important to a lot of people. Number two, broadly talking about depth. And there's this idea that you will have no depth after having SRS. Yes, in all likelihood, after SRS, your depth will be less than most cisgender women vaginas. But most trans women after SRS are able to get a depth anywhere from 4 to 6, sometimes even deeper, depending on who did the surgery and the techniques they used. But typically you can get 4 to 6 inches of depth, which is probably more than enough for a lot of sexual acts. I mean, unless you're trying to stick extremely big toys in there, or somebody with a really big dick is trying to go in there, you're probably going to be okay. We won't have as much, but there's still going to be some depth, unless of course you get specifically the 0 depth vagina, which is a possibility where it's essentially just aesthetically a vagina, but you don't have the vaginal canal. But that would be something you would have to intentionally choose and talk to your doctor about. Because for some people, having that depth is not important. Which brings us to point number 3 related to dilation. If you don't want to dilate, 0 depth might be an option. But for most of us, we do get some semblance of depth, some semblance of a vaginal canal, so dilation is important. I've talked about this in previous videos, but there are many people who might think that dilation is overrated, not necessary, maybe not to the extent that's recommended. I'm not going to go into too much detail here since I have talked about this in the past, but dilation is extremely important, especially during the first 3 to 6 really the first 12 months, but especially those first 3 to 6 months when things are still really healing and there's a greater likelihood for things to close if they're not being dilated properly. If you're not dilating that vagina properly, it is much more likely to close at the 2-month mark than the 24-month mark, because it is still healing. Your body is not used to having that, so there's going to be more of a propensity to want to close that vaginal opening. That being said, follow your doctor's orders. It would really suck to go through all of that time and probably money and pain to then just have things close up on you. Because not only does closing up ruin any sort of pleasure that could come through penetration, but it also opens you up for infection during those crucial early months of healing. Many of you have probably realized this, but it's something I think that is good to have in mind to create some perspective before the surgery. SRS will not solve all of your problems. You're probably like, duh. But there are many people out there who think it will or truly hope it will. I mean, yeah, we probably hope it will. It's a big surgery. All the problems will go away. Everything will be fine once I get my SRS. I would say safely that having SRS has made my life better in many ways, but it doesn't simply address everything. How could it? Because there's such a psychological component to trans experience that, a physical change like an SRS is not going to make all of our discomforts and issues and dysphoria go away. For most of us, having SRS does significantly reduce our dysphoria, but it's probably not going to completely go away. I feel much more comfortable in my body. I'm super happy that I had it done, It will happen. You'll still get that discomfort. And of course, having a vagina is not going to solve other problems related to your trans identity out in the world, or other problems that have nothing to do with being trans. It's probably like a no duh, no shit, Chloe. Of course, getting a vagina is not going to like make my job in an office park better. Why did I think of the most boring analogy to make there? But it's good to just be aware of that, have that in your mind. You don't want to set yourself up for feeling let down after the fact. Reasonable expectations are important with everything in life, especially a major life change like getting a vaginoplasty. Last one is really a misconception related to all things appearance-wise. You know, there's this fear that partners will be able to tell the difference between my vagina and a cisgender woman's vagina. They're going to be able to tell that it's not real. It's not a real vagina. I mean, first of all, it is a vagina. It was surgically created through a process called a vaginoplasty, which literally means to surgically create a vagina. And yes, you're not going to have all the reproductive organs that a cisgender woman would have, but you're still having a surgically created, therefore, yes, different, but it is still a vagina that has a vaginal canal, it has a clitoris, it has labia, it has its own vaginal flora, so on and so forth. And I just insert that in there because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, you don't have a vagina. Having that argument in the first place that, oh my god, it's not real, it kind of ignores all the reasons for why we get this surgery in the first place. Sure, my vagina is not going to be exactly the same as a cisgender woman's vagina for obvious reasons, but also all vaginas are different to some extent in terms of how they look, how sensitive they are, you know, how they feel, how they smell, and even how they taste. For those of us that go down on people with vaginas, for those of us that go down on women, that is something we notice. There are differences between women. Just like there are differences between cis women, there are differences between trans women, and therefore there are differences between cis and trans women. I put all this in here because there are so many differences here, your partners would most likely not be able to tell. It's just going to be like, this is a new vagina, and it's slightly different than ones maybe I've experienced in the past, and that's completely normal and completely expected because we don't expect like all genitalia to be exactly the same because they're not. Try not to worry about that. You're having a surgically created vagina, but is it real to you? Is it real to those you're with? That's really what's important. There's going to be those people out there that are going to criticize that and be like, you don't really have a vagina. Fuck them. You know what you got. You know what you have, and you know what it does for you to have that vagina. You know, it's about reducing that dysphoria. It's about feeling more comfortable in our own bodies. It's about feeling more comfortable while being intimate with others. And those are so many of the things that having a vaginoplasty can help us achieve. I already know there's probably going to be at least one person who comments below and just be like, hello, did you watch the video? You're missing the point. If you're arguing that it's not real, you're missing the entire point. Try not to let those haters get you down if you're somebody who has already had SRS or is considering getting it in the future. So there's probably a variety of other myths and misconceptions, but really, you will likely be able to orgasm. You'll probably have more depth than you think. Dilation is not overrated. SRS will not solve all of your problems, and all vaginas look different. The fact that yours might be different than the next woman is not a big deal. It's all about what it does for you. So let me know in the comments below, what are your reactions to these myths and misconceptions? Are there other ones that you can think of that are important to share with the rest of the audience? And as always, thank you so much for watching. Tipsy and I love you all so very much, and we hope you're staying safe and healthy during this tough time. Remember, if you have not done so already, please give this a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Bye for now.